Hail viewers, today I'm going to talk about Akira Toriyama. Now, I did not intend to do this video. I really did not. I had thought about it. I'd said so many people are talking about this, and I've noticed that especially in the foundational Black American community and many Black people in general, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. There are many anime and manga connoisseurs. And so, I said, truth be told, I probably should speak about this. I probably should. Because from what I can see, there are many people who seem to, and this is just my opinion, not have very much in sooth self-respect, dignity. To be honest, now what is dignity? We will take a look at that definition from WordWeb. The quality of being worthy of esteem or respect. In this regard, I am not talking about any other group other than people who have features which are often called black. Whether you call it phenotype or what have you, it doth not matter. Truth be told. Alright? Basically, Akira Toriyama had a very long history of depicting something called blackface. Alright? Akira Toriyama, one might very well say, was a master of blackface. There are many people who are foundational Black American, especially, as well as many, no surprise, many individuals who are of the white social status who see no problem with what Akira Toriyama did, or rather think that when many of their fellow so-called white peers or even black people say things about Akira Toriyama and his use and his mastery of blackface, because this was a man who regularly depicted black people, or what may be called black people, or at least basically he used a very popular art form, or at least it was popular at one period in time in the United States, and yes, even Japan and Korea. Many people do not understand the history of blackface, how blackface was taken to Japan by Commodore Perry. Alright? Whatever that position of Commodore is, I really do not know, in sooth. However, I will say this. Blackface had become popular in Japan and throughout Asia due to its spread. There were people in the United States who were traveling to Asia and showing people, this is what a black person is. This is a funny person. This is a person to laugh at. This is a person who is beneath you. This is a person who is not worthy of dignity. And they are very funny to us. Let us show you how funny black people are. This was what blackface was. Yes, Japanese people do know what it is. Now, I am going to present the information to you viewers that can basically, in a sense, prove to you that what I'm saying is true. This is not something that one doth ignorantly. This is something that one doeth full well, with complete knowledge of what one is doing. When one is creating a blackface image, one is intentionally showing their audience, do you see this? This is a funny black person. This is someone we should laugh at. Even though many of us are completely serious individuals, it is a way of degradation. when you have a whole group of individuals that you can essentially treat as minstrels, as people who are funny. If they get out of line, you can put them in jail or prison, or in slave times you can beat them. This is the history of our country, whether individuals want to deny it or not emphasize it or not. This is the history of the United States. This history was carried forth throughout the world, even Asia. So oftentimes you will hear people say, well, Japanese people do not know what blackface is. Akira Toriyama is old. He would not know that that was offensive. Before we begin, this is, as you can see, Akira Toriyama. This individual was a bit older. However, he was not that old. In sooth, I have older relatives myself, and I am about, in my 30s, but anyhow, this is the blackface master. When he could do it, he did it. When people did not really pay much attention to it or really care about it, he was a master of it. This is the truth. So, what you are seeing here are the big lips, the wide nose. The lips are drawn in an exaggerated fashion. The skin is in some cases completely black. This was what Akira Toriyama was a master of. Some of you would have many of us who are foundational black Americans believe that those of you who are black and support this are individuals who actually have dignity. But I would ask, if you are not worthy of being respected, if you are not worthy of esteem, if you do not consider yourself worthy of that, if you think that being depicted in this way is something that is completely, how should I say, something that thou canst simply ignore or not necessarily address or even care about, do you really respect yourself? Do you really have very much dignity? What is your standard? There are white people, so to speak, that is to say, people of the white social status, because there is no such thing as a white person that any of us have seen. If thou hast seen one, please tell me, because I have never seen a white person or a black person. These are terms of status. These are terms of complete social status. This is where you are in terms of caste. And whatever sort of differences that you may have regarding that caste, that is what it is. It is a social designation. The skin is brown or beige or cream colored, but it doth not matter, because you can find black people who are just as light as so-called white people. You can find North African and Arab people who consider themselves to be white or are considered white by the definition of the United States Census. And they themselves claim themselves to be white. Black is a social status. What is the purpose of blackface? The purpose of blackface is to, in a sense, show everyone this curiosity, this novel individual who is lesser than us, who we can put here in front of you to laugh at. And you can say, you see, that's a funny man, that's a black person. He's more animalistic than us. He's just funny. Look at his hair. Look at his skin. Look at his big lips. Akira Toriyama thought that this was funny. All right? He thought that this was funny. Now, some of you may say he could never have understood that. It came from a different culture, thou mayest say. However, and of course I'm using thou regarding the address to one person. I could use you sometimes. I basically switch up my language. So if I'm saying thou, I'm addressing one person. But thou mayest say that this culture is not something that came, or rather that was present in Japan. If thou dost not think that pale skin is on a certain type of level or is very much preferred, all you have to do is look at geisha culture and see how they paint their faces completely white. And their really strong adoration for pale skin. To be pale is, in their opinion, not in their opinion, because we are talking about the opinions of specific individuals. We may very well be talking about the prevailing opinion in an ethnicity or a social group or a people group. The prevailing opinion amongst many people throughout the cultural history of Japan is that pale is good, pale is beautiful. You want a woman who has very pale skin. And so the geisha, in the sort of immolation of this trait of paleness, paints her skin white. This is desired amongst not just Japanese individuals, but many Asian peoples in general. Many individuals. This is a cultural phenomenon, so to speak. Now let us continue and look at something that really does show the adoration for pale skin, even more so in Asia, as well as many other countries. Now we have something called skin lightening cream, things known as skin lightening cosmetics and the like. Now in this regard, we will be talking about skin lightening in Asia. All right? Skin lightening in Asia is fraught with risk, but it still thrives. It is so easy to find so very many articles about this. Many Asian individuals, but not just them, but also African and Caribbean and many other individuals of all sorts. We even have some particularly disreputable individuals here in the United States to do this. However, we have far fewer of them here in the United States than we do in other countries. This is something that's more of a global phenomenon, or rather, I usually do not say global. Maybe some, if you can understand the context between that and sort of discern something about my beliefs. When I say I usually do not say global, be that as it may, I'm not going to make a conversation about that. Anyhow, basically, skin lightening in Japan, skin lightening throughout Asia. It is a very popular thing. It's a very interesting subject. It is promoted. Japanese secret to whitening skin. You see, this is the natural hue. Afterwards, you have a color that looks weird and alien-like and strange. And to be entirely honest, quite unnatural in my opinion. The skin was meant to be darker on Japanese people. However, through the use of skin whitening, skin bleaching so to speak, because bleach means to whiten, you can make your skin lighter. This is what is considered beautiful oftentimes. Not amongst everyone, and it is important that I say not amongst everyone, because there's a tanning culture in Japan too, where people embrace their natural colors and embrace what the sun can do to their skin and how dark their skin can naturally become. There are some people who will sort of compare natural tanning to skin whitening, and it's completely different. Skin whitening has to do with chemicals. Skin whitening has to do with formulas and solutions. Now, I'm not talking about tanning beds. However, there is a gone guru tan culture in Japan. These people, they are not ashamed of looking a bit darker. They tan. Sometimes they tan maybe a little too much. However, that Japanese skin can really sort of adapt to that tanning regimen that they have, far better than their Caucasian counterparts in Europe and the United States and many other places. Asian people tan very well. Asian skin, for the most part, oftentimes, as it stands, it is different than European skin. There is more of a melanin quality to it. Therefore, it tans quite well. they can get tanner, they can get more tan than what you may call your average pale European individual can get. Now, I have to say that sometimes they do go quite extreme with their tanning culture. However, over there in Japan, they do not joke. When they want to get tan, they get tan. But you see, regardless of what excesses they may participate in regard to this culture, it is what it is. Right here, this is completely natural in terms of just Japanese skin that's been sort of, how should I say, tanned by the sun. Look at this. These are just two girls. They have a deep tan, but yes, their skin can get that deeply tan. All right. There are some people who may use tanning beds or spray tans or what have you. However, I have to say that for Japanese people in large part, the sun can naturally give them a very good tan. The sun can naturally do that. Now, in many cases, in regard to what may be called the Caucasian, or the, not necessarily Caucasian, because yes, you can be a dark Caucasian, Negroid, and Mongoloid, all are 2-3 classifications of race that do not have to do with the skin. They have to do with the skull shape. You can be a darker skinned Caucasoid person. You can be. And this was recorded throughout history. If that were not the case, what we may call our sort of understanding of human evolution is entirely flawed, because it would be impossible. Because essentially there would be no sort of reference or understanding of there being darker skinned people becoming lighter skinned. But anyhow, I am not a proponent of evolution. However, what we know from science shows that darker skinned people can produce lighter skinned people, and they have throughout history. As for lighter skinned people producing darker skinned people, unless those genes are sort of arising from maybe a descendant, an ancestor of some sort, that often doth not happen. But we know the dark came before the light skin. We know it. The dark skin has more utility in regard to protection from the sun. Brown eyes have more utility in regard to protection from sun glare. This is just the truth. We can all respect ourselves more when we recognize that all of these features are related and connected. As Lao Tzu, or at least some people believe it was written by Lao Tzu, you read in the Tao Te Ching. I know that is a terrible pronunciation, but basically, there's that old Chinese saying that the heavy is the root of the light. In this case, the dark is the root of the light. All right? And in a sense, darkness is somewhat heavier. And in regard to skin, well, what we may call brown skin is thicker, is more substantial than lighter skin. The darker it is, the thicker the skin is, the more smooth the skin is, the more, how should I say, the more resilient and the better it ages. Darker skin, the heavy is the root of the light. The brown eyes come before the blue eyes. The brown eyes come before the green eyes, the gray eyes. This is how nature works. The heavy is the root of the light. Things progress in that way. You look at a statue of how should I say, Nebuchadnezzar. It starts off gold, and gold eventually becomes what? At the statue's feet you have iron and clay. You could say this is an age of iron and plastic. The people that rule in this age are masters of iron and plastic. But anyhow, that is a whole different discussion. We are not going to get involved in that. But this is our life here in this world. Sometimes I do detract and go into different discussions. But anyhow, and I do love the Ganguru culture. I know Ganguru culture can get somewhat extreme because these girls, sometimes they tan really, I mean, it gets wild. But I mean, personally, they're really fun. They have style. They have colors. They have flair. I mean, they get really crazy with it sometimes. Sometimes they're... You know, I don't know what to say. It's pretty wild. But anyhow, we have this in contrast to Gator culture. And you could say that this is a response to prevailing cultural tendencies, where instead of wanting to become as white as they can, they now want to become as dark as they can. But Gonguru culture is not really as popular as the sort of personification, or rather the idea of white being something that is aspired to. Excuse me, people, I want to see if my microphone is working. All right, it is, I believe it is. It may be. But yes, anyhow, Akira Toriyama. This is what he drew. These were the types of images that he used to depict what we may call darker skinned people. Now, I know there are many of my peers of the black social status, individuals who, quite like Akira Toriyama, they feel, how dare anyone say anything about this man? And there are many white people of the white social status, who may say, well, no one should say anything about this man, he is dead. We're all going to die. As far as I know, maybe thou knowest someone who hath not died, but that doth not change anything that has happened. And so, because of that, I'm going to talk about this. It may offend some people, but frankly, that doth not matter to me. I have something called dignity, the quality of being worthy of esteem or respect. And I believe that, in sooth, we as individuals all have the right to some basic dignity. And since I'm a Christian, I do not believe in the way of the sword. You may call it self-regard, self-respect, self-worth, whatever you might want to call that. This is very important. And I'm telling those of you of the black social status, and as I am, that those of you who are saying, oh, no one should criticize Toriyama, he's dead, and people should not do that because that was a long time ago, and Japanese people do not know about things like racism. We are going to talk more about that as well. We really are. Now, I'm going to ask you, the viewers, to excuse me as I take a break. I'm going to play the sound to this video, and I will be back soon. Okay, let me cut that up. This is just some old Elden Ring gameplay. Alright. Alright, viewers. I have returned. Anyhow, we are going to, basically, this is a discussion about respect primarily. There are people, many of whom, they are expressing their, their umbrage with people who are criticizing Akira Toriyama. And this has always happened. Even when Akira Toriyama was alive, it was the same. There were people who were saying, do not talk about how Akira Toriyama used blackface. That was a long time ago. He is Japanese. It is a different culture. Here, I'm going to elucidate upon that matter so that those of us who do not have a very big cultural understanding about Japan and its history with blackface can understand it. Let us begin without further ado. We already looked at the geisha culture. We already looked at the history of skin lightening. Let us look at some very pertinent information regarding World War II Japanese culture. Japanese people were called honorary Aryans by Hitler. Some Jews were considered to be honorary Aryans, but this was a very proud thing for many Japanese people. In the case of the Japanese people, to whom Adolf Hitler bestowed the following title, it seemed that they were granted the status not simply for economic, military, or political reasons, but more so because of their apparent racial integrity. In the political testament of Adolf Hitler, Hitler stated, "Pride in one's race," and that does not imply contempt for other races, so-called pride in one particular race and not contempt for other races, is also a normal and healthy sentiment. I have never regarded the Chinese or Japanese as being inferior to ourselves. They belong to ancient civilizations, and I admit freely that their past history is superior to our own. Remember, this is Hitler speaking. They have the right to be proud of their past, just as we have the right to be proud of the civilization to which we belong to. Indeed, I believe the more steadfast the Chinese and the Japanese remain in their pride of their race, the easier I shall find it to get on with them. That he, in fact, held a high opinion of Japanese. All right. For some time before the formation of the Axis is also confirmed in the numerous passages of Mein Kampf. So you have to recognize that Japan was an ally of Axis Germany in World War II. Do you understand? They have a culture, and this is well known, that was influenced by World War II German culture. All right? They were considered to be honorary Aryans. I want some of you to know that that culture of World War II pride in that history is still very much popular today. How so? You may ask. Let us take a look. Let me see. What was I looking for? Yes, Japanese Nazis. If you do not know that there are Japanese Nazis still around who take pride in their Japanese cultural history, there are. They are here. Of course, even in high school in Taiwan, that Nazi culture, that idea of we are honorary Aryans, can be found. But there is a particular Japanese Nazi party. And the video somewhere here, they're still around. They still take pride in that Japanese idea. Sorry, the screen sort of went to my home screen, so to speak, my desktop screen. But yes, Nazi culture is very, very popular, but also there was a man who basically is sort of part of this Nazi party in Japan, but I cannot find that video. Here we go. Here's the man, this very weird looking, unpleasant looking man. All right. Let us see some of this video. Just play a little bit of it.
同じ能力があるという考えはおかしいと思う。
The idea that blacks, Germans, Japanese, Koreans, and Chinese are all equally capable is ridiculous. You saw it and heard it yourself. So that is what he believes. This sort of racial culture in Japan, it is popular. Those of you who say, oh, there's the Japanese culture does not have racism in their culture like ours does. Yes, they do. There are plenty of Japanese people that believe these things. This man, and I forget his name, he has met with Japanese politicians. If you do not know about the Yakuza, the organized crime in Japan, and their connection to conservative groups, then you do not know very much about Japan. If you do not know about Shinto nationalism, its connection to Nazism, then you do not know very much about Japan. We have people speaking on this who are talking about it as though, oh, this would never happen in Japan. Akira Toriyama, he didn't know, this was just an honest mistake. Let us continue. I sort of tire of many of the facile defenses that many people have. Now this is called Encounters Facing the West. The Great Encounter Through Japanese Eyes. In other words, these are some historical pictures that Japanese people drew. When Commodore Perry and all of these people came to Japan, they brought over technology. They brought over their ships, and they got to see how these people looked and so forth. And we have a very interesting thing right here at the end. Shipboard entertainment for the Japanese featured a minstrel show with crewmen in blackface. Yes, Japanese people were introduced to blackface a long time ago. They know what it is. This is why dignity is important. Are you worthy of being respected? Are you worthy of esteem? It doth not matter to me how many people of the white social status will say, oh, you should just stop talking about Akira Toriyama's use of blackface. And I do not care about what they say, or rather I do care in that I do regard it. However, that is not going to stop me from talking about it. Do you understand? This is a history that Asia has. When you see it, you can know that it's not something innocent. They were taught that black people are funny. Black people can be made fun of, and that this is something normal, and that this is something proper. They were taught that. This sort of conception that black people are not worthy of the same dignity that other people have has been promoted throughout history. There's a reason why they dressed them up in black faces and put wigs on their heads to basically seem like black people, to show you this is something worthy of mockery. Do you understand? How more clear do I have to be? I'm also talking to those people, those fellow people of the black social status, who happen to be, how should I say, real anime fans. In regard to your status as an anime fan, I would say no one should be a fan of anything. Fan means fanatic, a fanatic. And fanatics are not necessarily known for their high logic. In other words, being a fanatic is not something necessarily that logical, because a fanatic cannot really think very pertinently or logically about the topic that they are obsessed with. Being a fanatic indicates obsession. And when you are obsessed with something that does not necessarily show a sort of, how should I say, a degree of respect or esteem to you, which is really worthy of dignity, then I would ask the question, how many Jewish people do you think would deal with it? How many of those people, the sort of Asiatic type indigenous people would deal with it. I'm not talking about those of us who are Aboriginal American Indians, but how many people do you think would deal with it who are not of the black social status, or who do not consider themselves to be of the black social status? How many white people do you think would deal with it? How many people would sort of dismiss whatever self-regard, self-respect, self-worth they have in themselves, their features, however God made them, so to speak, and say, I can accept this? I know Akira Toriyama drew us in a pretty terrible fashion, but it doth not matter. This is all acceptable. How many of you are willing to accept this? How many of you can ignore this? I read manga too. I watch anime too sometimes, but I am not a fanatic, so to speak. Excuse me, I have to clear my throat. All right, I'm going to take a breath. All right. That does help me sometimes to catch my breath. But anyhow, I'm not a fanatic. And I recommend that you abandon fanaticism. It is not characteristic of a sound mind to be a fanatic. You see all of these images. You see how disrespectful they are. How much dignity do you have? That is the question I'm asking you. Yes, in the present day, there is a Japanese Nazi party. Yes. In Taiwan, they have their little Nazi-themed parade. This idea of being white, of being of the white social status, of being of the superior master race, that is very important in whatever culture that they are expressing. And I want some of you to understand this. Some of you have become very comfortable, and I am talking to those of the black social status, not those of the white social status. However, you may learn something as well. Some people have become very comfortable with other cultures that make fun of them, that show them a very small degree of dignity, and in some cases, it may be said no dignity at all. No real dignity or esteem or respect or adulation of any sort. But anyhow, some people will accept that. Now, regarding the Taiwanese that we see, they are not indigenous. We know the indigenous Taiwanese people look different. The indigenous people of Taiwan look darker. All right? The indigenous people of Taiwan look a good deal different. Big lips, flat nose. Do you understand? They look like a lot of the island people all throughout the islands of this world. Look at those thick noses. Look at those, in some cases the lips are thick, especially that man up there. Look at those thick lips. Look at that flat, broad nose. That was what Hitler was against. Hitler did not like features like this. We know that it is true. When you are considered an honorary Aryan, it gives you a certain degree of pride. All right? But we do not even have to talk about that. We can look at the geisha culture itself, showing you that the light, pale, snow-white skin, so to speak, is beautiful, and they cannot even really achieve that beauty standard, so they need to use white paint. I am showing you how the culture works. I'm showing you behind the machinations, the technology of this particular culture, so to speak, its intricacies. All right? Some of you may be interested. For those of you who are not interested, this video is not for you. This video is for people who want to gain higher cultural understanding. This is not for people who do not want to do that. There are many people of the black social status, white social status, because as far as I'm concerned, there's only two. There are darker people and lighter people. Let's talk about people of color and brown people. No, that it has nothing to do with complexion. It has to do with social status, based upon complexion. You are not going to find a person that looks like white paint. This is the idea of whiteness. Do you understand? This is why it is so exaggerated, the idea of a white-skinned woman. I know they paint their teeth black for whatever reason, but I do not know why they paint their teeth black. Not all of them do, in terms of this geisha culture, but nonetheless, you can see what it is. Anyhow, let me continue. It's the idea, the concept of whiteness as being something holy, good. But those of us who read the Bible, we know the horse that comes with death is a pale horse, and it just so happens that the pale people of this world cause most of the death. All of the world, and the biggest wars, World War I, World War II, they create the biggest conquests. Alright? And we have that book by Bill Cooper. Now, am I saying anything bad about those who have pale skin? No, I'm not. But the sort of obsession with paleness is, in a sense, a culture of death. And some people may think that is kind of ridiculous. How could I say such a thing? Well, to be frank, I just have to be honest. We have at least two countries that were created. Their key foundation is mass genocide. The United States, not to mention Canada, that is making three. Australia, a key fundamental of those nations, what gave them being, so to speak, was mass genocide. And what were the native people told? You were told that they were told, rather, let us be very specific. If we are very specific, then no one will have any sort of illusions. Where am I getting these random pictures? I was looking for pale horse. Anyhow, let me go back to the gameplay because I just need something to show. When I ramble off like this, it is better that you have something to watch. Anyhow, basically, the book of Revelation says a pale horse is going to come with death. Paleness in the Bible is not something necessarily considered to be so good and holy as many of us might think it to be. We have to remember that even Solomon, the woman he loved, that he was talking about, who was so very good and pure and excellent, what color skin did she have? Hair, skin that was black. But you see, these are cultural things. The idea is that black is unholy, black is not good. Black people, darker people are not good. But lighter people came from darker people. The heaviest the root of the light. This is just the truth as I know it. And frankly, I think it is incontestable in sooth. But anyhow, I have no umbrage with anyone because I know that in sooth, whatever degradation is sort of done unto those of the black social status, it can all be traced to, how should I say, this sort of disconnection with one's roots. Because in a sense, when you make things like blackface, what you are doing is that you're actually showing hatred to what you are. And that can even be shown through science. This idea there has to be a superior master race of pale lighter skinned people. Have you ever seen a dark skinned Nazi? Have you ever seen someone who takes the ideals of Nazism, of racial purity, that Hitler espoused and really sort of promotes them as a dark-skinned or brown-skinned man? Now, you may find some Latino individuals who consider themselves to be white, or Asian individuals who consider themselves to be of the white social status, and they will promote it. Many of these ideas have to do with Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who Hitler was influenced by. And her idea of a master Atlantean race, or rather a race of people who were descended from people of Atlantis and were just superior to any other race and had superior intelligence and so forth. All right? I mean, this is very interesting. But this is a culture still popular in Asia today. Not just in Japan, but also in Taiwan and Korea. The idea of being a pale person and being superior to darker skinned people is something appealing to some particular Asian individuals. I never say all, and I'm very specific about never really saying all. Specific individuals who have this sort of, how should I say, Weltanschauung, a German word meaning worldview. This is just something, a type of culture that is heavily esteemed amongst certain individuals all over the world. And that culture, the fundamental idea of it is that a pale, lighter-skinned people are superior to dark-skinned people who are inferior. Call it pale supremacy if you would. I think the term pale supremacy is more pertinent in the world than white supremacy. In my humble opinion, I use the term pale supremacy. Sometimes I utilize the term white supremacy. However, when I use pale supremacy, thou knowest exactly what I am talking about. Now, once again, I'm using the term thou, which I probably should say you, because I'm talking to a range of individuals. However, if I say thou mayest understand that to be me talking to you peradventure on a personal level, on a very personal level. All right? So you can imagine I'm just talking to you as an individual on such a personal level that I am deciding to use the term thou. And thou mayest understand it that way. Using the suffix st after thou. But anyhow, I wanted to convey that to you. I want to convey this to you, that this is not something that is respecting you. This is not a mistake. This is not a mistake. Akira Toriyama, that man that I know some people are defending now, he knew what he was doing. There is a culture of, how should it be said, anti-black social status in Japan, but there is more than that. Some people believe that Japan is above ethnic divisions, but that is simply because the country, went through a process of absorbing different ethnicities and identities and destroying them. Now you may ask, how so? Excuse me, I have to clear my throat. I guess I will play this, the sound to this video. Alright. I thought Elden Ring did not have, the music was not as good as Dark Souls 3, in my humble opinion. I even like Dark Souls 1 music better than Elden Ring music. But anyhow, we're going to talk about some deeper issues of Japanese ethnic identity. I'm just going to make this short. The superior identity, or the sort of esteemed identity, is Yamato Japanese. pure-blooded Yamato Japanese is considered superior. However, in this ethnic group, in this ethnic category, you also have people called Buraku. These are sort of your descendants of, of a lot of the workers in Japan who are sort of at the base feudal level, the peasants, the peons. Buraku, and the discrimination still continues today, just like Indian caste discrimination. Buraku, or Burakuman, or whatever you call Hamlet people, or whatever. They're a whole sort of ethnicity, but mostly we're going to talk about Ainu and Ryukyuans, or Okinawan people. The sort of ethnic Okinawan people. And we're just going to read some short extracts from this. Current issues regarding Ainu. If you do not know, Ainu people are a type of, how should I say, they're a type of racial and ethnic group in Japan. And those of you who've probably heard, oh, Japan is homogenous. There are not many ethnic groups. That is not true. Japan has ethnic groups that are different than just, that were in the country before a good deal of the travel started. Ainu, indigenous Okinawans, not to mention the fact that you have had Koreans there in Japan living amongst Japanese people before Westerners had even come. All right? There's no such thing as this idea of a modern day homogeneous country. The closest thing you would probably get to that is Sentinel Island, which is off the coast of India. All right, they do not let anyone come there, and therefore there are no real different people. And who knows if that missionary who went there is still alive or not. But if he met the Lord, we Christians are not here to stay. So we die spreading the gospel. We say the world laughs at us, but we say good. We do not want to stay here. This world is horrible, this world is evil, and Satan is the ruler of this world. Those that take up the sword shall perish by the sword. There is nothing worth fighting for in this world. Hey, that's more of a spiritual religious topic. I will not really talk about this in this video because I could expound upon that, but I will say this much. Jesus, he did not put up a fight when he was taken by the Pharisees and executed by the Romans. And if you want to understand my Weltanschauung, I am of the same mind. I have nothing to fight for in this world. I am not going to take up the sword. Our Lord Jesus Christ said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." All you need to know about my beliefs is in that one statement by Jesus Christ. All right? It's very simple. It's very simple to be a Christian, but some people make it very confusing. Anyhow, let me continue. So anyhow, we have the Ainu. Ainu continue to face economic and social marginalization, including prejudice and discrimination, which has not been tackled sufficiently by the government of Japan. This has occurred, for instance, in cases where an Ainu person has sought to marry a non-Ainu person in terms of access to education and in hiring practices. Ainu also continue to be greatly restricted in their ability to fish salmon, a traditional food, by various authorization requirements limiting them to poor quality districts, much like the ghetto. Much like the ghetto. Is that not right? Much like the ghetto. The ghettos for, that many of people of my black social status happen to be in. All right? So this is an racial and ethnic group in Japan. This is a people group in Japan. Where do we get this from? The minority rights group. Just so you know where to go. The minority rights group. Now we have Ryukyuans, or however you would call that. Okinawans. Ethnic indigenous Okinawans. The culture and traditional lands of the Ryukyuans continue to be threatened by the denial of the right to be free, prior, and informed consent in policymaking, especially concerning the expansion of U.S. military bases in Okinawa and an issue that is perceived as a form of discrimination against the indigenous population. Now, this is a situation in which Japan, the Japanese government, and the United States government are discriminating against the Okinawan people. However, Okinawans are discriminated against throughout Japan. All right, we have Koreans, Ainu, and Okinawans who are receiving discrimination in Japan. Well, let us learn more about the history of blackface, minstrelsy in Japan. This is a long history. You can read all of this. It's a 78-page book. You can probably find it in a Google search. Just peradventure write this in. That's from 1838 to 1860. This culture has been around a long time in Japan. They were very early on taught the black man. Oh yes, the black man. And I will show this to you again. He is worthy to make fun of. He is worthy to say, this is a person to mock. You see that that brown skin? You see that woolly hair? Mock him, because he is funny. He lives and his existence is for your enjoyment. Do you understand? He dances, he sings. He is there to entertain you. And they taught this to them. That is what the minstrel show is about. Dost thou understand? That is what it is about. Peradventure, there were some of you who had some, how should I say, misconceptions about just how intricate this culture was. This was to teach those people, those black people, those people with the black social status, those Negroes, Nigers, I'm using a soft G, they are worthy of your derision. So I am simply asking you this. You do not need to take up the sword and fight, but I am simply asking you this. Do you have dignity? I am a Christian. I cannot take up the sword. I cannot fight by the instructions of my Lord. I want to be one of his children, and therefore I do not fight. I do not take the way of the sword. However, I have dignity. I believe, since I am a child of God and not a child of Satan, which I could be, I have the quality of being worthy of esteem and respect, and regardless of what happens to me, all right, this is something I will both give and require. And even if my life is taken away, I will preserve my dignity. All right? Someone hurting me does not destroy my fundamental dignity, because my dignity is something mental. All right? My self-regard, self-respect, self-worth. This is all mental. This is metaphysical. This goes beyond any type of physical relationship. This is something personal. All right? So I have dignity, and therefore I can, if I look at this and I ask the question, did Akira Toriyama intend to do this? Yes, he did. He did. And I know he did. And so I will say it. Akira Toriyama knew what he was doing. This was that old culture of blackface that he was applying. All right? Make the black man look funny. Make the black man be entertainment for those Japanese people or whatever white people of the white social status who like it. All right? That is what he was doing. He understood the joke. There is a reason he drew black people the way he did. And I know why, and many of us know why. And for those of you who are white, of the white social status, or those of you who are of the black social status defending Akira Toriyama, it doth not intimidate me. It is not going to intimidate me. I know that some of the people in some of the more popular media, some of the more mainstream media, had started to say something about Akira Toriyama's racism. And that there were people who apparently they received consequences for it, because there were many so-called fanatics, fans, who said something about Akira Toriyama and said something about the coverage that Akira Toriyama was receiving. And they sort of got something to happen, just like we know about those of us who are foundational black Americans who watched the treatment of Forspoken. And we really got to see how that one black character who had a very professional voice actress was treated. Oh, the memes, the little conservative alternative right memes, the little questionable white supremacist memes start to happen. And you are hearing this from a foundational black American Christian who doth not even care about witchcraft or any of these sort of new RPGs to promote that. However, I did see how they were treating the young black girl, the young girl of the black social status from New York. And I said, oh my, what do you know? That is no surprise. And I saw people like, I might as well go into detail, people like Alana Pierce, people like her who had quite a lot to say about Forspoken and the character and the voice acting, all of these things. What voice acting has Alana Pierce done? What skills does Alana Pierce have? Personally, from what I've seen, Alana Pierce really does not have very many skills. And certainly not as a voice actress. Alright? Now, people have started to talk about problems with people such as the Synthetic Man and other people of that sort. Okay? And how obviously biased they are. And how some of it borders on bigotry, you could say. I mean, it's all this pouting and, oh, look at this, a black girl, this sucks. Okay? We have games like Elden Ring that people such as Alana Pierce or other individuals like Mr. Maddie plays and other people may praise. However, or Asmongold and all of these folks may praise. But how much acting did Elden Ring even have? Very little. Because there were not many characters in it. Forspoken was a character-driven RPG, but anyhow, that is what it is. Those of us who saw it. And I will continue to talk about it regardless if there are people who are of even the black social status who want to criticize it. Because what I saw from the black social status in many cases were more pertinent criticisms. But when I saw a very skilled voice actress being talked about in the way she was, I thought, oh my goodness. I know exactly that not all of this can be particularly legitimate, and a good deal of it has to do with some particularly venomous personal bias that many of these individuals have. That was what I saw. But a lot of people, the games they promote and the things they sort of do, I see the double standards. I really do. I could not help but recognize that. Now, in regard to Akira Toriyama, I do not very much have much else to say about him. I think I've told you probably what basically the culture is. Okay? Now you know that racist culture in Japan, so to speak, pro-white culture is not necessarily just based in Europe. Pro-white culture around the world may be called pro-pale culture. Alright? The idea of thick lips, the idea of broad noses, is really looked down upon by some particular individuals. In Asia, in many other places. But anyhow, I hope that you can benefit from my analysis, so to speak. Peradventure, thou mayest gain something from it. I hope that thou dost. But anyhow, this was a very impromptu video. Not necessarily impromptu. I was planning to do it ever since I heard of Akira Toriyama's death, but I thought I wanted to see how people reacted more. And then I started to see all types of people talking about basically the theme that they were promoting. For the most part, the popular or prevailing Weltanschauung, in a sense. Well, I guess that is a little too broad of a term because this is not necessarily a worldview. In a sense, it may be, but the popular opinion, the popular view was that Akira Toriyama should not be criticized. You are disrespecting Akira Toriyama by criticizing him. And I have to say, I will criticize him. I do not care that he is dead. I know there are many individuals who are, not everyone, I have to say that, just so those of you who are going to have an emotional response to my words understand this. This is an example. There are many people of the white social status who do not like, previous people of the white social status who lived a long time ago to be criticized because it makes them feel uncomfortable. I do not hold such a view. I believe that people who have done something wrong should be criticized for the benefit of posterity and everyone alive now. I believe that if one does something wrong, one should be criticized. All right? That is my belief, personally. Now, whoever you are, thou mayest disagree, but that is my belief. Anyhow, I am getting somewhat personal with that thou, but you can imagine I'm just talking to you personally. I'm right there in front of you. Of course, you have no idea how I look or who I am, but anyhow, basically, yes, I'm sort of connecting to you on that personal level. I'm saying thou mayest sort of think this, but I'm telling you, I think that if you did something wrong a long time ago, there's no reason I should stop talking about it. Someone may learn from said mistake or said bigotry or said bias or said mistreatment of other individuals. Maybe people will stop doing it if enough people really talk about it. Now that is a very wide, sort of incredible hope. However, embarrassment is a very powerful thing. There are many bigots who are embarrassed. And one may say that this is the indication that there is really a sort of great propriety that is on a metaphysical level that none of us can really conceive or understand on just how much of a scale it has, but it is there. So much so that you may say it is related to conscience. And so even people who you may say are quite bigoted, quite they sort of have these foundational, fundamental bigotries, become embarrassed when you say, let me tell you about the culture and history that you do not know about. Peradventure, there is an embarrassment due to ignorance. And they say, I never knew this. I never understood this. I never understood the culture and history of blackface and why so many people of the black social status take umbrage with it. But thou wilt realize that, indeed, not all of us take umbrage with it. Why is this so? Of course, this has to do with different individual opinions. However, in some cases, you have people who criticize those who do talk about it. And that is related to, how should I say, a personal sort of, how should I say, relinquishment of self-respect or dignity, of self-worth, and so forth. They think they deserve that. And because they think they deserve to be disrespected, they are not particularly concerned about being disrespected. They think they deserve this. They think they deserve this. And I am specifically, in this case, all of you are listening, but I really want those of you of the black social status, my fellow peers of the black social status, the status that we were given, to think about this. Do you think that this is right, good, that you deserve this? I'm asking ye, rather. I can stop the sort of personal address and just go to a plural address. I'm asking ye this. Do you think that you deserve this? Are you willing to accept this? Are you willing to criticize people who bring up this matter seriously? Because that's what I've been seeing. Now, I could bring up some words that describe a person that goes against themselves on a physical, mental level, and really sort of has a preference for being, well, actually, I would just say the word masochistic or mentally masochistic could be a good word to, or good phrase to use in a sense. I really do not, how should I say, personally masochistic in the sense in regard to your personality, or even your soul, because in the Bible, the soul comprised both the body and the, and the mind in the book of Genesis, but that is a whole different matter. But basically, whoever you are, do you have self-respect? Do you have dignity? I'm not talking about some sort of pridefulness. I'm talking about dignity. On a fundamental level, dignity as a fundamental concept. Is that something worth something to you? Do you think that that is something that you need, something that you require from a relationship? Or do you think that dignity is not something you really need? In that case, I really cannot understand that worldview. But if you are a person who is in disagreement with me, I ask you, please participate in my comment forum. In my video forum below this video. Anyhow, this has been most excellent. May you be blessed, and farewell.